What is up, everybody? Another episode of the Cross Chop Podcast. That's John owning PFF, Nick Harris, 4-Star Telegram. Shout out to producer Caden in the back. Diving more into this Week 4 matchup between the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers. And today, as we plan to do every Thursday, taking a look at the opponent's offense versus the Cowboys defense matchup, which now, as we get into Week 4, is starting to become a little bit of a chore to do because this Cowboys defense has been so bad. We talked to Matt Eberflus today, and he offered up a couple of things that, it's more lip service is what we heard from Week 3. It's like, hey, we're trying to fix the communication. We're going to fix the communication in the back end. But John, we heard that last week, and things weren't changed. Things weren't fixed in the game against the Bears. And as I've said on this podcast before, unless it's personnel changes, man, change doesn't mean a whole lot to me, but change is still being talked about. I asked him, though, about the thing we have been talking about, John. I said, hey, you got DaRon Bland coming back. Is it as easy as sliding him into the slot corner spot, or do you have a consideration of putting him on the outside? He said no comment. So at least that possibility is out in the open. But, John, breaking down this matchup, and how are we feeling today?
Man, it just seems like Eberflus is just too stubborn for his own good. He's just one of those coaches who he's going to do what he's going to do because that's what he does. And it's regardless of what the personnel or what the results on the field are telling him, he's just not going to change. And it's really unfortunate because it might really prevent the Cowboys defense from playing up to their capabilities this year. Honestly, not feeling great. They've gone against worst offenses and had terrible results. So it's kind of hard to be optimistic going into this matchup where they're going against an offense with legitimate weapons. And what's even sadder is the Packers have injuries up front on their offensive line, which I'm sure we'll get into, but I just don't know if the Cowboys can really take advantage of it in the passing game, at least. In the run game, they can probably still continue to do a good job in that department, but you got to get this pass rush going some way, somehow.
Yeah, and speaking of those weapons, we're going to start with Jordan Love, their quarterback that they developed for a couple of years behind Aaron Rodgers and has had great success against the Cowboys. This is kind of a wild stat I came across. The Packers have never lost in AT&T Stadium, and obviously Jordan Love has never lost in AT&T Stadium. He's been really good so far this year. He's 7th in completions that are 20-plus yards downfield. And against this defense, holy shit, that's about the worst thing that you could say. But Jordan Love, and breaking down, what he has done over the course of the first 3 weeks, what do you love, and where do you see some opportunity maybe that the Cowboys can jump in?
I just think, like you said, I think he's doing a really good job pushing the ball downfield. The Packers receivers aren't the most well-known names, but they have a good mix of different types of receivers that can attack defenses differently. I really like what I see from Matthew Golden. Obviously, Tucker Kraft is having a phenomenal year for a tight end. So, like you kind of intimated, I'm just really worried about the Cowboys' ability to defend the deep passing game. The communication has to be on. The technique has to be right. There can't be no coverage busts or anything. And what the play calls have to fit what's going to work. Matt LaFleur and that people in those kind of Shanahan coaching trees have done a really good job against the Cowboys' defense. They're really good. They do a really good job of maximizing the edges that you can create, whether it be with motion, play action, different types of run schemes and everything. So the Cowboys D is going to be tested not only personnel-wise, but also scheme-wise. And like I've said before, I hate being so negative, but it's just there hasn't been much to be optimistic about.
A couple of more insights that I think, again, just spell more disaster for this Cowboys defense on Sunday. Jordan Love ranks 8th in EPA per play against zone coverage. And we've talked about this Cowboys defense running more zone coverage than any team in the NFL.
He might be first after this week.
He very well may be. He also ranks 4th in passing grade off of play action, according to PFF. The Cowboys are allowing they are 25th in the NFL in yards per play allowed in play action situations. So with a running back like Josh Jacobs and seeing what the Bears were able to do whenever they did set up the play action last week against this Cowboys defense, I mean, the recipe is so clear. It's so obvious that everyone in the stadium pretty much knows what that recipe is going to be, and you still do not expect the Cowboys to stop it. And that's the unfortunate reality that you're looking at with this Cowboys defense, is that you have some advantageous guys up front that have been able to play well at times in the run game. It's still middle of the pack in the NFL. You wish you had a little bit more out of that. But in the pass game, it has just been disastrous. And, again, unless it's Maris Leofau getting in the mix or Diggs and or Elam factoring themselves out or a change with the safeties, you can't really expect a whole lot because at this point we're bridging into the air of insanity where you're expecting different results with the same exact guys. And I don't see how you can expect that. It reminds me very similarly to last year with Mike Zimmer when we were talking about the same exact thing with the run game, right? And what were they able to do? They were able to, maximize DeMarvion Overshown's impact in the run game. They were able to work some things within the scheme that did work going toward that middle portion of the season. And then certainly on the latter half of the season before Overshown ended up getting hurt, they don't even have a guy right now that I could point to. I like Maris Leofau, but Maris Leofau isn't going to bring you that type of impact. Overshown's not coming for another few weeks, although I will say today he had on-field drills today for the first time in his rehab process, which is cool. But I don't see how they can be able to stop the Jordan Love attack, granted, with what they have put on the table through 3 weeks.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate because as Jordan Love showed last week against the Browns, he's someone who can get confused and disoriented by more complicated coverage concepts. I mean, the really key interception that he had against the Cleveland Browns was really a genius man match concept where the Browns were basically playing cover one across the board, but they were playing a match principles on any in-breaking and any short in-breaking routes where they pass off the route and then they fall back into the other throwing window. And that's exactly how they were able to confuse him. He thought that they were playing just straight up cover one man. So when he saw I think it was the hook, what would normally be the hook defender was carrying the slant. He thought that he can hit the outside slant, but that guy fell off and then intercepted the ball. But guess what? The Cowboys ain't going to run. They ain't going to run none of that stuff. They're going to be running too much cover 2, cover 4, cover 3, a very, very tiny smattering of cover 1. They just don't have these kind of more, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but like elevated or more complicated is not really the correct word, but like the kind of 301 version of coverages that you see. He's kind of still sticking with the really simple stuff, and it's just not going to be as successful against a guy like Jordan Love that when he sees it correctly, he's going to pick you apart.
Yeah, and he's got weapons to dish some of these opportunities out to, and Tucker Kraft has been one of them here early in the season. He had a huge game in week 2 against the Commanders. And that he battled an injury going into last week, but was still able to play. And he's on track to play again this week. But you add Tucker Kraft's elevated receiving ability into the mix with Matthew Golden, who was a first-round pick.
Especially against this linebacker crew who just –
yeah, that's a great point, too. That's a great point, too. And Tucker Kraft can beat you in a lot of ways. Well, let's go ahead and start there. He can line up inside, he can line up outside, he can line up in line, he can line up in the slot. I mean, there's a lot of things that Tucker Kraft can do to get open in the receiving game, and I think they're finally starting to figure out how to maximize his value because at times it was sparingly in his first couple of years with the team. I think you're going to start seeing it a little bit more consistently as time goes on, and once he fully heals from this injury, I think the only hope that they do have in being able to stop a guy like Tucker Kraft it would be a guy like Donovan Wilson if they were playing more man coverage, but they're not. And that's unfortunately not the reality. But, you're asking these linebackers in Jack Sanborn, Kenneth Murray, and Damone Clark to be able to cover this guy across the middle of the field. I don't see where that happens.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think he's the biggest mismatch weapon that the Packers have in the passing game for sure. And I think that the fact that the Cowboys play so much base defense with 3 linebackers on the field is only going to be something that's going to play into the Packers' hands because that means you're going to have one of these 3 linebackers covering Tucker Kraft on the vast majority of plays, and that's just not a recipe for success, especially if they can get like a Sanborn matched up. The Packers can manipulate the Cowboys' defense in a way that allows Sanborn to get matched up one-on-one with Tucker Kraft. It's not going to end well for the Cowboys. That's where I can definitely see the Packers creating a couple big plays in the passing game by generating big plays with that matchup.
This is a good question from Piston Broke. How many points can our defense hold them to for us to have a chance to win?
Low 20s, it has to be.
I think this offense can put up high 20s. I think it has the potential to do that in this game. I'm looking at if the Cowboys win
Against this Packers defense, though,
I mean that's tough. That's tough. I feel good about what the Cowboys can do.
That's the thing.
I feel good about what the Cowboys can do in the run game. I do. And if they establish the run early on, like we mentioned yesterday in the offensive preview, if they can establish the run early on, it's going to open up opportunities for George Pickens, for Jake Ferguson, for Kevontae Turpin. They really need that to happen in the first quarter. You're going to know very early on if the Cowboys offense can sustain, being able to keep up with the Packers offense. But I think that's how you do it is your offense gets out to a hot start and, gets long possessions. Time of possession battle is going to be crucial in this one. And then your defense just makes the required stops to where, like Solid Duck says here, an average effort at the end of the day.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be really hard for the Cowboys offense without CeeDee Lamb to be able to put up, that many points against this Packers defense, especially because, the injuries that the Cowboys have on the offensive line and the issues they've been having at tackle and pass protection. I just don't see Dak Prescott having enough time in the pocket to really be able to consistently threaten them down the field. So that kind of takes away a lot of what you can do in the big play part of your offense. And I just don't think the Cowboys have the ability to dink and dunk their way down the field without making mistakes that are going to hinder the drive as a whole. So personally, to me, I think the 24-point to 27-point range is probably like the ceiling, the best that the Cowboys can do. And that would be fantastic against this Packers defense who, is arguably, top 1, 2, or 3 in the NFL so far this year. So it's going to be difficult. It's not a good matchup for the Cowboys, really, no matter what way you put it. I think the only place for sure that the Cowboys have an advantage is the kicking game.
Yeah. I would say if you're comparing both running games, we'll get to Josh Jacobs in a second. I think you could probably look at Javonte Williams and what he's done at least through 3 games to where you'd probably have a little bit more confidence in the Cowboys running game. But then you factor in that 2 offensive linemen are going to be out and it kind of rebalances the scale a little bit. Another pass catcher that I want to dive into is Romeo Doubs. And as a 4th-round pick with such a crowded room and they've thrown so many bodies in that room over the course of the last couple of years, he has been the one that has been able to stay consistent, and he's second on the team in receiving coming into this one behind Tucker Kraft. I like what Romeo Doubs can do. He's got the versatility. He's got the big playability. He's averaging 17 yards per catch, over 17 yards. He's going to have his opportunities against this Cowboys defense. I think if you're looking at 2 big play guys that can make it happen for them, you look at Kraft and you look at Romeo Doubs.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Marcus Golden is someone, or Marcus Golden, the edge rusher. Matthew Golden is a guy who can really win as well. I think his route running has been really impressive for a rookie. I think he's been like the perfect kind of 3rd to 4th option for that Packers offense, and he can really take advantage of opposing teams as like number 2 and number 3 corners. And I think depending on what they do with Bland, if they put him into the slot, I think Golden can have a lot of success against Kyrie Elam. But if it's going to be interesting if the Cowboys play Bland and Diggs on the outside with Stewart on the inside, who are they going to try to attack? Are they going to try to attack Stewart? Or are they going to try to attack Diggs because they don't think he's physically back to where he was? Or are they going to attack Bland because he's coming off an injury? So I think it's going to be really interesting to see kind of the chess game that LaFleur is going to play in the when he's calling passing plays to the outside receivers.
Yeah, Brett Pittman referencing something that happened in the presser today. Whenever I asked about Bland being inside or out, he was like, "Well, no comment. I'm not going to give you trade secrets. Plus, you're wearing green," and it was kind of a funny moment. And Eberflus was just trying to be funny. I didn't take it personal or anything. Let's dive into this running game matchup because again, Josh Jacobs. He has the physical ability. He has the breakaway speed. He is about as complete as a back as you're going to find in the NFL, in my opinion. He can do pretty much anything that you ask him to do. With an offensive line, they are going to be missing their right tackle. I think there's going to be opportunities for this run game, defensive run game, to be able to build consistency. But they're going to have to hit Jacobs early, and they're going to have to hit him often.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the running part of their offense has been the weakest part to start the season. It hasn't really been up to their usual or maybe their past standards. But I still think it's something that you have to be really concerned about because, like you said, Josh Jacobs is a very well-rounded guy. He's someone who can turn, negative or short yardage gains into medium gains or into long gains. So the Cowboys have to be on their P's and Q's. They have to be consistent when their run fits like they have. They need the interior defensive line to continue to be successful. Also, interesting note, coming into this season, how big of a talking point was, the whole defense has to play better against the run. It's not all on the defensive tackles. And then we see them upgrade the defensive tackle position, and then they all of a sudden can stop the run really well. Wow, maybe John was right. Who would have thought? But anyways, back to what we're saying. We need the interior defensive line to continue to do their job and make things easier on the linebackers, because the linebackers, if you make things hard, it's not going to get done. So I think that they can have success against the running game, and I think it's paramount that they do, because if they start getting gashed by that running game and the Packers can get their play action passing game going, it's going to be curtains.
I would argue that if the Cowboys cannot let Green Bay establish the run early on, that they might have a chance defensively. You looked at what went so wrong against the Browns last week for Green Bay. You see 16 rushing attempts for Josh Jacobs to only 30 yards, less than 2 yards per carry. And when we talk about Jordan Love having such consistency with play action, this Cowboys defense not succeeding against play action, it's almost, you kind of look at it, which team can establish the run first? Whoever does is going to have the path to victory the easiest. You hope that the investment that you made in Kenny Clark can be able to really show up in this game, not only in the run game, but also being able to understand what advantageous matchups he would have up front, because he knows those guys, went through training camp with those guys. And, with the opportunity that they have in front of them in the run game, if they can keep Josh Jacobs limited and force them to put the ball through the air, it scares me. Don't get me wrong. It scares me. But I think there's a path to victory in that way.
The problem that I see with taking like the Browns game plan and saying like, if the Cowboys do that, if the Cowboys can do that, the Browns have one of the best defenses. The Cowboys certainly do not. So it's just like, we can look at all of these things from previous games, like Team X did this against them, but that team is just so much significantly better in that facet than the Cowboys are, that it's hard to really be optimistic that it's like it's a goal that can really be reached. It's nothing the Cowboys have done on defense to this point this year really tells us that they can do anything to stop this Packers the offense, in my opinion. It's all potential. It's just conjecture. If they do this, then that. There's no like definitive, like we've seen them do this, so that is something that can happen. It's kind of like we're just hoping the hope, and it's really frustrating that we're at this point for the Cowboys defense, because I think it's just a confluence of really terrible defensive coordinator with personnel that doesn't fit the scheme, and it's just a mismatch of things that don't fit.
Yeah. Let's talk about this offensive line for Green Bay. Their left tackle, Rasheed Walker, he's been limited in practice this week. Their right tackle, and Zach Tom, most likely not going to be playing in this one. Their left guard, Aaron Banks, has not practiced this week either with a groin injury. So there's going to be potentially 2 offensive linemen up front for this Green Bay squad that are not going to be playing, one for sure. And then you have Darian Kennard, who would most likely rotate in at right tackle. There's going to be opportunities, for this defensive line, not only in the run game, but in the pass rush. I mean, this is a game that Jadeveon Clowney is expected to make his debut. If you don't get 2-3 sacks against this Green Bay team, you're starting to really put this pass rush on life support, just because it has not shown any life to this point.
100% agree. Against the Giants, it was a situation where we really needed them to take advantage of the injuries up front. They didn't do that in the passing game.
Yeah.
This is their next opportunity. We have to see them. They have a little bit of reinforcements coming with Clowney. I do think Clowney can have some success, but again, it's his first game action of the year, and he hasn't really practiced. He hasn't done training camp. He's kind of going in cold. So what can be your expectations there? But I think he's the one guy up front who has proven that he's capable of generating maybe consistent pressure here. I think this is a game that someone like Dante Fowler, if you can like limit his snap count a little bit, just let him, I've said it so much, but just let him pin his ears back and go. I think he can have some success against these 2 offensive tackles, Kennard and Walker. So you got to figure out a way to do it. And if they can't win with their front 4, Eberflus has to get off his high horse and start bringing the blitz on a more consistent basis, because this defense needs pressure to be able to stop the passing game. If you're just going to let Jordan Love sit back there, identify coverage and pick holes and just, just systematically disarm the Cowboys secondary over and over and over and over again, it's not going to go well. It's not going to go well. In my opinion, the entire success of the pass defense in this game relies on the pass rush having success, getting Love off his spot, making him pressured, getting him to the ground, hitting him consistently. Those are things the Cowboys have to do if they want to have success defensively this week.
And not to put you on the spot, is there one offensive lineman you like more than others on this Packers front?
I mean, I really like Zach Tom, but he's hurt. I think Elgin, I can never pronounce his first name.
Elton, I think.
I think he's really good. I think he's probably one of the most versatile offensive linemen in the NFL because he's played up and down. He's done really well at tackle in previous years. Yeah. He's playing at center now, and he's doing an admirable job. So he's someone who has really impressed me, and especially with the roster limits and everything, when you have someone like him who can play so many different spots, it's so valuable. And I think that he's been key to the Packers offensive line being, above average while he's been there.
Yeah, certainly. And I think, if there's two guys out, that's going to put more pressure on the guys who are in, the three starters that you would assume would still be in. You also have Anthony Belton, the rookie out of North Carolina State. That's an option at their right tackle spot as well. Could possibly be their swing guy. He's played a little left early on, but that's another name to keep in mind. I liked him in the draft process. I really did. I'd be curious to see what he looked like out there on the field. Upset in the making. Let's dive into this topic that producer Caden built for us. We've talked about it a little bit. I want to talk about it on both sides of the ball. If you can give me one key on both sides of the ball saying if this happens, you think that this is the easiest path to victory.
On defense, I really think they need to get pressure. I'm going to give you two because I also think that Caden in the chat had a really good suggestion, and that's they have to hold the Packers to field goals.
Yeah.
And that's going to be like if the Packers are moving the ball up and down the field, but they have to settle for field goals because the Cowboys, buck up in the red zone. I think that would be an optimal path for the Cowboys defense. And on offense, I think you got to get the running game going and the play action passing game going. And that's going to allow you to find some success there because that's going to give Dak a little bit more time in the pocket to where he can attack the intermediate and deep parts of the field. So I would say those are the couple things that both sides of the ball need to do for the Cowboys to potentially pull off an upset.
Yeah, for me, it's on both sides of the ball. I think it starts with the run game in this one. I think defensively, you see an opportunity to stop Josh Jacobs early in this game and to make it a light box so you can dedicate more resources to the secondary, dedicate more resources to these passing weapons that the Packers have because, boy, they have a lot of them. And you pray, you hope and pray that these communication issues have been fixed. Because if they haven't, then you're pinning yourself into a situation you can't win. But I think when Jordan Love does not have the benefit of play action, his numbers are considerably down, and that's throughout his career. So if the play action is not a threat to the passing game, then that's going to alleviate some stress on these defensive backs, and it should make life a little bit easier for them. But I look at that defensively, and then offensively, again, the same thing. I think if they can win the time of possession, win this running game with Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders, Hunter Lipke, whoever the hell they want to throw out there, CeeDee Lamb's bum left ankle, anybody that they want to throw out in the backfield and try to establish a little bit of a running game, I think that's going to be the best path toward victory for them on Sunday. Let's dive into some of these fan questions because there's some good ones. I want to start with this one from T-Jack. Do y'all see us using more dime packages?
I don't think so because that's not something that Eberflus does. He likes to play a lot of base and nickel, and I just don't think that that's a wrinkle that he's going to throw in this week, especially with how much, like we said, the Cowboys need to defend the run against Josh Jacobs and company. Maybe if they go against an offense that's more anemic running the ball, that they are more willing to play nickel or play dime. But I just, Eberflus has just shown to be so stubborn through these first 3 weeks that I'm not really getting my hopes up that he's going to make any significant changes to the scheme or personnel.
I like this one is pressing the corners hard on their wide receivers just to give our D-line an extra half second or so. Is that worth it? Trying to think of any solution over here. Absolutely. We talked about that yesterday, but I'll let you dive more into it, John.
Yeah, 100%. I think, allowing your corners to play with their hands and disrupt receivers at the line of scrimmage is one of the easiest ways to throw off timing of passing games, especially against a team that has LaFleur as their play caller de facto offensive coordinator, head coach. That their passing game relies so much on timing. And when you can mess with the timing, even if the receiver is able to get open, the quarterback is going to move on to his next read because you have to be so on time with all of your reads in that kind of offense. So being able to dictate, and disrupt at the line of scrimmage, I think is something that's exceedingly good to do against these type of offenses. And I think it's something that can have a lot of success. And like you said, it can give the pass rush that extra half second that they need to get home, because Eberflus loves to play on top of everything. He likes to play deep from top down coverage. That's why teams are able to get the ball out quickly so often against the Cowboys, because they're playing so far off. They're playing such what's the word? Oh, geez. They're playing such soft zones.
Yeah.
So definitely playing a little bit more physical, a little bit more disruptive at the line of scrimmage. Now, does that make you potentially more susceptible down the field if you don't have success and you totally forget what technique you're supposed to do, like Trevon Diggs last week? Yes, but I think that's a risk that you need to do, and you don't need to worry about, the one-off play where Diggs didn't have success in man and kind of go back to it again, because they've been running so much more zone, and we've seen so many more instances of them fudging that up for sure.
Was it you yesterday that had the stat about how they are pressing at the lowest rate in the NFL right now, or bottom three, bottom two? Yeah, that's unreal to me. When you have two corners that are over 6 foot tall and have physical advantages over most wide receivers,
and they value length so much on the corners. Exactly. It's like, why?
Yeah, exactly.
They're not playing with their hands.
It makes no sense. It really doesn't. And you return a guy in Bland who has succeeded whenever he has been able to jam and press guys and throw them out of their timing. That's where the takeaways have come from on this defense over the last few years. You look at only one takeaway in the first 3 games of the season. I think you could point to that because the timing has not been disrupted. And on that one interception, it was gifted to Donovan Wilson in an overtime period. Take that away, and they haven't been able to do anything. So I'm with you there. Piston broke, and so is John. Brett Pittman, 22 personnel. Give me some Lipke, or is it Lipke? It's the first one. But yeah, I'm with you there. Where are the Hunter Lipke snaps? I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, you extend someone and then don't use them, and only use them in the situations where they're not that good lead blocker. I don't play 22 personnel, but use him as a receiving weapon. Use him as a running weapon. Use him in the myriad of ways that makes him someone who can be a valuable contributor to the offense. Don't just use him like you're trying to, like he's trying to be Mike Allstott, just lead blocking half the time. It makes no sense given his skill set. It's just another instance of the Cowboys coaching staff, square peg in a round hole. And I don't think that's really – I think Shoddy is someone who has proven that he's capable of making adjustments and doing that type of thing. So I would like to see that adjustment made for sure. Or cut him and don't have him on the roster. I don't understand why you're going to have him if you're not going to use him optimally.
Do you think Flus has it in him to just start blitzing the crap out of people?
No.
I'm not 100%
sure. I have hope, but do I actually think Mr. Stubborn Eberflus man is going to do it? No, I don't. I just don't see it. I don't see it. He hasn't proven any of his stops that he's going to do something like that. Even with the Bears, where he had the highest blitz rates of his career, it was still hovering around average for the NFL. It was still below average in some years.
And what's crazy about it is when you look at his games with the Bears last year, up until he got fired right after Thanksgiving, they were 7th in the NFL in generating pressure off blitzes. And you would think it would work. You would think you'd want to sustain that and keep that going, but hasn't necessarily had the same effect here in Dallas here early on. The Cowboys in that category were 13th, if you were curious, but they pressured more than any team in the NFL last year. I wonder why. Cody, is it standard for NFL offensive tackles to be aware of the number of steps the quarterbacks drop on any given play? Because at times it looks like
100%.
Yeah,
tied into the pass sets.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, that's something that has to be known by Steele Guyton, because you have to know how much depth or how much what's the word? Width. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Width to create in the pocket. That's definitely something that should be.
I mean, you got to think it's like a geometry equation when you're on the field, because the offensive tackle has to relate the width of the pass rusher to the depth of the launch point of the quarterback. and they have wherever the meeting point is between those two intersections is where they have to get to that spot, build their house, quote unquote, build their house, and be ready to basically prevent them from getting to the quarterback at that spot. It's a geometry equation. If you listen to someone like Duke Manyweather, he talks about this all the time about the situations where you see a lot of offensive tackles have the most issues is where the quarterback's launch point ends up being somewhere that wasn't predetermined. Like maybe he was supposed to his launch point was supposed to be like 9 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and he drops to 10 or 11. That's when you see, the offensive tackle trying to push them beyond the pocket, and it gets pushed right into the quarterback. And you think it's like, oh, the offensive tackle was beaten. What is this? Such a terrible job. And it's like, no, it's actually on the quarterback. He got too much depth in his drop. He was too lackadaisical in his drop mechanics. And that is what created the protection issue on those plays. So it's a really fine line for sure.
And I kind of have a point to bring up off of this comment from Brett Pittman. He said, Eberflus said today depends on protection, et cetera, as far as blitzing and calling those packages. Protection-based blitzing, that's another that's something else I just don't agree with. And if they were as confident in their personnel as they were coming into the year, then that's not what they would be doing.
The thing that irritates me is you should have blitzes for every fucking protection. We're only gonna when they do 3 jet to the left side, that's when we're gonna blitz. But if they're running 2 jet to the other way, we're not gonna do it that way. Or if they're doing a full slide, we're not gonna do that. Or if they're manned up on everyone, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna blitz in those situations, whatever have it be. You need to have blitzes for every protection. You need to be able to exploit every protection. If you just have protections that you're gonna allow singularly your 4 down linemen to win, you better have 4 down linemen that are gonna fucking win, and the Cowboys don't right now. So it's just so frustrating. That answer is just so idiotic in my opinion, and it just keeps going back to how stubborn Eberflus is. I'm sorry that I'm getting upset, but it's just so infuriating.
I like Spicy John. Honestly, I'm gonna start baiting Spicy John to come out every week. Giving Jaden Blue some snaps would be a nice element of surprise for the Packers. I agree. I haven't been told no yet, and I've been told no by this point in the week every week. I'm not saying yes, but I've been told no by this point in the week. I think, with these injuries, though, there's going to be a lot of roster gymnastics that they're going to have to play. So CeeDee Lamb out. That puts Jalen Brooks in. Tyler Booker out. That puts Trevor Keegan in. Somebody's going to have to come out for Jadeveon Clowney. So you're already, it's already tough to find a spot for Jaden Blue at that point. If a roster spot opens up, I think you're going to see Jaden Blue, but that's the biggest hurdle at this point. When the decision was made at the beginning of the year to make him inactive, that was the decision. It's not a week by week decision at that point. It is, okay, we've made this decision to make him not one of the 48 active guys. Unless something opens up, we're probably going to keep it that way. Think back to 2023 with a guy like Viliami Fehoko, 4th-round pick out of San Jose State. He was inactive every single game, but he was on the 53-man roster. That was just a product of there wasn't an opportunity for him to slide in and make a debut. So that could happen with Jaden Blue. If there's not injuries at the running back position, or if there's not injuries to where it could open up an opportunity for Jaden Blue, then that's probably not going to happen unless he really takes a step forward in practice. John?
What about the fact that they inserted Mozzie without an injury going to Jay Toya, and they were willing to just insert him in? Do you think that was something that the coaching staff led, or do you think it was because maybe Jerry was like, hey, let's get Mozzie active type thing, and he's not going to do that for a rookie in Jaden Blue, who was such a low draft pick?
No, I think it was more of a coaching staff thing, because I think Mozzie and Jay Toya in their eyes are so close together, and they really liked what Mozzie was doing in practice over the last couple of weeks, and they wanted to see what it would look like with him out on the field with something to prove. He was okay. He didn't have his worst performance. Yeah. He wasn't bad. I'll say that. And I wonder how they approach that here going into week 4, especially if there is a left guard for Green Bay that's not playing, which one do they feel more confident can actually, generate some push in the run game. Carlos Sanchez Mazzi has actually had some good snaps, but still needs to step it up for a first rounder. He's never going to be a first rounder. He's never going to have that type of value. I think at the very best, you're hoping he can be a rotational defensive tackle that can give you some upside on passing downs. I don't like what he does on rundowns. I think at times he shows some flashes on passing downs, but even then it's inconsistent. That's why we're talking about it at this point and him being inactive. But even then, I like Solomon Thomas so much better. I like Jay Toya a lot better. I don't see how he can consistently find a role as a rotational one tech or as a rotational defensive tackle in general with this team right now.
Yeah. I think it also really, as far as the first rounder part, I think the Cowboys sacrificed that when they made him play in what has it been, like 3 different defensive coordinators in 3 straight years. He's gaining weight, losing weight, having to do all these different things. They're kind of Tyrone Crawfording him, in a way that where Tyrone Crawford was playing at, different. He was playing at such a high level. And then the fact that he was getting moved so much kind of deteriorated his play, because when you're changing your body so much, it's really difficult to acquire new skills and get better on a consistent basis, because, whether you're in a calorie deficit or in your calorie surplus, you're worried so much about like your body type. You're not worried about acquiring skills. So the Cowboys have just done a piss poor job in developing their first rounder. And it really sucks to see. I honestly am very curious that if Mozzie went to a more typical defense that you would have the same scheme for 3 or 4 years in a row, what he would be like, and it better fit his skill set. I think he would be someone who was blossoming a little bit better, but that's just not the case. That's not what happened with the Cowboys. So it's unfortunate, but I don't see him ever recovering and really hitting that first round talent or first round production, really.
Comment here for Patrick Hughes on CJ Gardner-Johnson. We actually have a couple of them. John would be able to tell you more about the on-field fit and how that would not work. If you think the safeties are playing bad right now, go look at what CJ Gardner-Johnson has done in the first 3 weeks. It's the same exact problems, except it's on an umpteenth scale, and he's taking
and everyone hates
accountability for it. Yeah, he took 0 accountability for it. That's why he got cut. It's funny. I ran into when I was in the Chicago airport on Monday. This was when I was flying out, and I got my $1,100 travel voucher. I had the voucher in hand. I was feeling great, and I ran into a source that has been able to help me with multiple guys. He's close to CJ Gardner-Johnson, and he's kind of split away from CJ Gardner-Johnson in recent weeks. And there is a lot going on behind the scenes with CJ Gardner-Johnson that no team should want to touch with a 10-foot pole. And that's before we even start talking about the on-field issues. So, look, man, do not talk yourself into CJ Gardner-Johnson. I understand the safeties are bad right now. It could be worse. Yeah. It could be a lot worse. You could have guys who are
have a riot in the locker room.
major off the field problems, and Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson are not that. So Carlos Sanchez, it's probably too late, but I wonder why they didn't sign Gilly. Always thought he could play safety too. It's money with him. I mean, he rightfully so. He's going to get an opportunity at some point this season, and somebody's going to pay him probably a little bit more than what the Cowboys were ever going to be willing to pay Stephon Gilmore. And plus, it is too late to sign him at this point. You're going to get Kalen Carson and Savone Revel back in the coming weeks, and then you're going to start putting these corner pieces together and figuring out what works and what doesn't. And you need to know that moving forward. You signed Gilmore to a team that's 7-3 and just lost a corner for the year. That's when you sign Stephon Gilmore. I don't see it as a assuming 1-3 team coming out of Sunday that still has a lot of young corners that they need to get out there and figure out who can play and who can't, because I think that's going to be very valuable for the future. James McNair, does Wilson and Hooker's play have anything to do with how terrible the run defense was last year? They are so nosy in the backfield; it's just terrible. You go with this one, John.
I don't think so. It's just because they just have bad eyes. They're playing with bad eyes, bad discipline. They're not really seeing the whole field. They're not playing with enough awareness. They're only siloed into what, like, the receiver who's right in front of them. They're not seeing out of their peripherals. They're not seeing the whole field, and that's just a lot of the issues they had. I don't think it has much to do with the run game woes, to be honest, because a lot of the issues they've had are on must-pass situations where there is no run threat. So,
yeah, and I would even add on that if that was the case, then you would have saw a lot of bad big pass gains last year too, and that they happened, but they didn't happen at the clip that they're happening at right now. So that's what I would say to that, is that this is a scheme issue with these guys, and these two guys not being able to communicate with who is around them and the defensive backfield that is around them. So, man, we're going to wrap it there. Let's get predictions in, and then you got a sumo update, John. First prediction. I think Packers cover, and I think they win in this one. John, what you got?
I refuse to pick against the Cowboys because no one pays me to be objective, so I'm not going to be objective. And even though Cowboys probably won't win, I'm going to choose the Cowboys to win. So we're going to go 24-21 Cowboys.
Okay, let's do it.
Sumo update. We took a hit, fellas. We took a hit finally on day 12 of the Bash Show. Hashoru lost to the really, really talented Ukrainian Ionishiki. So Hashoru is 11-1 entering day 13, 3 days to go. Him and the other Yokozuna, Onosato, are tied. They're at 11-1. And Tomowashi is also 12-2, so he has an outside chance that Hashoru or Onosato take a loss. So, but it's shaping up. I mean, the way it seems like the matchups are going to go, we're going to get a day 15 last match of the tournament, Onosato versus Hashoru, Yokozuna versus Yokozuna for the win. I just really hope that they both can win days 13 and 14 to get us to that point, because that is epic television. I cannot wait. I'm really hoping that Sunday night after this Cowboys, hopefully victory, that I can sit down and see my boy Hashoru come up clutch yet again and get the dub and take the Bash Show.
I'm just impressed you can say all these names like off rip. These are all Japanese guys.
When I went to Japan earlier this year, I did so much practicing. I could say like all the sumo terms. I can't name them off the top of my head, but I can pronounce them all, like Yokiri, what's another? There's a ton. There is a ton, and I have gotten pretty decent. Yokozuna.
I love it. All right, we're going to have all the sumo.
Or what was that lady's name with the Beatles? Was it Yoko Ono?
Oh, God. Caden would know. Caden, hop in.
Yes. Yes, Yoko Ono. It's like, yeah.
Producer Caden with the fact check. We'll be back on Monday to recap not only Packers Cowboys but all your sumo needs with John Honing. But yeah, I again, we've talked about the path to victory. I think there is one. This game is worth watching, and I will tell you if there is a game that's not. That Lions game last year, I would have told you it was not. At the beginning of the week, I felt like this was trending more toward that 47-9 reality that the Lions game was last year. As the week has gone on, though, I think there is a path here for the Cowboys, but they have to play perfect, and they have to play much better on the defensive side of the ball. So we'll see. We'll be right back here to recap it with you on Monday. For my guy, John, for producer Caden in the back, I'm Nick. Everybody stay blessed, and we'll see you all in a few days.